Today, we're digging into a really fascinating and, let's be honest, pretty challenging book from the 1930s called Man the Unknown by Alexis Carrel. It asks this question that feels even more important today than it did back then. In this big race to build the world of the future, have we completely forgotten to understand the people who are supposed to live in it?
Okay, so let's jump right in with the core puzzle Carrel is trying to solve. His whole point is that for all our incredible scientific knowledge, we basically have no clue how our physical bodies, our bones, our muscles, actually connect to our minds, our thoughts, our spirit. It's this massive mystery right at the center of who we are.
So, where does this big mystery even come from? Well, Carrel argues it all starts with a huge imbalance in science itself, a giant blind spot in what we even choose to look at. He lays out this really stark contrast, right? On one side, you have the sciences of matter. Think physics, chemistry. They're elegant, they're mathematical, and they're moving at lightning speed. And then you have the science of us, of human beings, and he calls that an inextricable jungle. It's messy, it's complicated, and progress is just slow.
What this really means is that we've kind of taken the path of least resistance. We've focused on the things that are easier for our brains to handle. You know, the clean, predictable laws of the universe. But when we have to face the stupendous mass of cells, humors, and consciousness that is a single human being, well, our brains get, in his word, bewildered. We mastered the outside world because, frankly, it was the easier puzzle to solve.
And you know, this focus on the material world, it worked. It built a civilization that, at least on the surface, looks like a massive, undeniable success story. And it happened fast, like blink and you miss it fast. Carrel calls it a silent revolution. The entire environment that our ancestors knew for thousands and thousands of years, poof, it was gone, replaced by something completely new. And maybe the biggest win from that revolution was just more life. Thanks to things like hygiene and modern medicine, life expectancy skyrocketed. It hit 65 years in places like New Zealand when this book was written. For our ancestors, that would have sounded like pure science fiction. We got really good at building a world designed to get rid of hardship. You know, elevators so we don't have to take the stairs, machines to do all the heavy lifting, central heating so we never feel the cold. Our food became more plentiful and easier to eat than ever before. We were safer, more comfortable, and better fed than any other generation in history. So if you just look at the stats, if you just look at the surface, it really seems like we nailed it, right? We built a kind of utopia, a better, easier, and longer life for everyone. But Carrel asks us to hold on and look a little closer. And this is where that whole triumphant story starts to get a little complicated. Carrel starts pointing out these really troubling paradoxes that are hiding just under the surface of all this so-called progress. And then he drops this massive question, the one that the whole book really hinges on. All this change, all this comfort, all this safety, has it actually been good for us? Check this out. Here's the first paradox. Physically, we look better than ever. We're taller, we're stronger. But at the exact same time, our inner resilience seems to be fading. Our ability to deal with simple things like fatigue and worry has gone down, and our nervous systems have become, as he puts it, delicate. And then you've got the paradox of education. We have more schools, more universities, and more books than at any other time in human history, and yet, Carrel argues that this flood of information hasn't actually raised the overall intellectual standard or produced more truly brilliant minds. And finally, this one might hit close to home. The paradox of safety. By protecting ourselves from every little struggle, we might have robbed ourselves of the very training that builds resilience. Without that struggle, Carrel says, we easily break down when we face real problems, and we fail to develop essential human qualities like courage. So, if you've got all these contradictions swirling around, what's the final diagnosis? Well, Carrel's take is, not great. It's actually pretty grim. Look, his diagnosis is intense. He says we've built a world that we're just not adapted for. Now, writing back in the 1930s, he made a pretty controversial argument that by getting rid of disease and struggle, we've kind of interfered with natural selection, and he feared it was leading to what he called mental deterioration. His biggest fear was that our modern world just got way too complex for the kind of people it was producing. And really, the bottom line is this. Our creations have completely outpaced us. Our economic systems, our social structures, our technologies, they've become so huge and complicated, but our own minds and morals just haven't been able to keep up. It's kind of like we're a bunch of kids stumbling around a world of our own making. And all of this brings us right back to the beginning, to the central theme and the title of the book itself. The ultimate takeaway is actually a really humbling one. I mean, we figured out how to build skyscrapers that touch the sky and how to split the atom. We totally mastered the world of things. But when it comes to understanding ourselves, what we really need, who we are, what we're actually capable of, our knowledge is still, in his words, most rudimentary. And that's what's so wild. This book, written almost a century ago, leaves us with a question that feels like it could have been written this morning. In our own crazy age of AI and nonstop technological change, Have we gotten any closer to solving the mystery of ourselves? Or are we still at the